Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special stream, I suppose you might say. Special in the sense that I have two guests with me. I know I advertised one. Um, I've got, first of all, who is becoming a regular feature on these streams. It's Shin's Koala. Hello, sir.
Hello. I don't know if that's a good thing, but hello.
Of course, it's a good thing. There's constant requests for that. And also, which is quite important for what we're talking about today, would you believe Tiffany's here as well?
Yay!
Yay!
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Tiff.
Of course,
Yeah,
anytime.
I'm. As I told you earlier, and again, I didn't say this. I didn't want to say this too excessively, but I'm your biggest fan, and what you're doing right now is incredible.
Second biggest fan. Biggest fan's Lorne's. Lorne is her biggest fan.
That's true.
Right.
That's absolutely. I can't supplant that. But you're amazing. I think I don't know whether you're in law. I don't know what you do, but or psychiatry for that matter.
If not, you should be.
Yeah.
No, none of that.
It's kind of like just I've never seen anybody handle a witness like that. You boxed him in, kept him in there, and never let him leak away, and that was amazing.
Right.
And then got things out of him we never expected. That's amazing.
Well, thank you.
And that's what leads us to today, because of you. Anyway,
Uh-oh.
but Andrew, you want to go ahead and take it from there?
I'll just set things up a little bit because I think it was a couple of months ago. I've always been chatting with Clobbering Time. He's been kind of around really since the beginning, since I started making videos, and I didn't know he was doing live streams on some new Lorne content where I didn't know the ins and outs of it. And if I'm being totally honest, I wasn't really interested because I've not particularly been an advocate of contacting him. Well, to some degree, I had reservations about it, so I was like, I'm not really bothered. But then I can't remember how I ended up hearing I think someone put a comment in one of my videos and said, you've got to listen to one of the Tiffany calls. He's admitted that he's admitted he's a predator. So I was like, right, I don't give a shit what my reservations are, I'm listening to it. So I put on one of Clobbering Time's videos, and I had a listen, and I heard you for the first time, Tiffany. I was like, I really enjoyed it. And, like I said, I'm not having, it's not to focus on the past, but I only want to concentrate on what I heard with you. And what I really enjoyed about it was you were putting him in his place. There was a sincerity in what you were saying to him. So regardless of what this guy deserves, or that's a conversation for another time, you was trying to point him in the right direction and say, no, stop the bullshit and see yourself for what you are. And I didn't detect any specific sinister motive. I'm sure you've had a bit of fun with him every now and again, and that's not to have a go at you. I'm just saying that you've took the piss out of him a little bit, which I don't think there's anything specifically wrong with. But I really, like Shin said, I loved listening to you speak to him. I loved hearing you put him in his place, and you said things to him in a manner this sounds really sad, but in a way that I've been dreaming of saying to him for fucking years, and you said it. And you said it to him.
She was channeling us.
Yeah, you were like channeling the whole Lornography community, Tiffany. It was like, I'm sorry to keep making this comparison, but for me, it's like it was like watching a brand new Star Wars film. It's the same level of thriller. Well, not the fucking last one, but it was like the same level of thrill that I got out of it. So I just wanted to sort of explain my position, and we've spoke a little bit about how you've been feeling when you've spoke to him, and you've kind of admitted yourself there's been a few wobbles that you've had because you're talking to a creature in a way. He's not. I mean, if you want to mentalize people into categories and say bad and good, he definitely doesn't fall in the good category, does he?
Absolutely not. No.
No, and I'm assuming when you mean dangerous, you mean face to face, obviously. So I think,
No, I sort of meant as a generic term for being not dangerous in that Tiffany would come to any physical harm. I just mean that
no,
having any. So,
yeah, I didn't mean what she was doing currently, but if she ever were to go there, I wouldn't.
oh, of course. I mean, I know that she wouldn't. I suppose maybe a bad choice of words. I meant that having any kind of relationship with someone like him, whether it be on the phone or by text, isn't it potentially healthy. But like I've said, I think we've chatted about it a little bit, Tiffany, is that you seem more than smart enough to handle it, and that's not me trying to, just compliment you for the sake of it. I'm just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Just being honest.
Just being honest. Well, thank you. Certainly I have had a lot of fun at Lorne's expense. There's no question there. It came to a point where the persona that I had in speaking with him was positioned in such a way that I could say whatever it was that I wanted to him. And it became like I was the voice of reason. And that really allowed me to say a lot of the stuff that I had been thinking about him over the years, even when I was listening to previous contact and stuff. And I'm the type of person who is very direct, and I do box people in with questions, and it's just because I want to know. And so it really allowed me to get some of those questions out, and really try to get something out of him. He's been regurgitating the same stories and the same excuses for years, and it needed to change. I needed to see if I could break that, and I was. So. Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but he's not only been telling the same stories all these years. He's been wasting time and resources, court costs, and these stupid civil suits, and all of them are premised on this bullshit that you uncovered essentially. But Andy and I actually come at it, look at it a little bit differently. But in terms of the old stuff, I was a big fan of, but I was kind of getting saturated by it. I get to the point where I was memorizing what his responses were going to be. I mean, it was getting pretty bad. So I was kind of waning. My interest was waning. It wasn't necessarily, there's always that part of me that said, oh, this is a guilty pleasure. Guilty was the key word. But I still enjoyed it. But when I first started this, I thought that Lorne was just one of those, goofy half-wit characters that I love watching in comedy, from Three Stooges to Homer Simpson to, whatever, Michael Scott, that kind of thing. But he was real. And so I couldn't find anything better in that genre. I thought he was fantastic. But, and again, as I say, like anything else, I kind of get saturated by it. It just gets, I just get tired of it after a while. But I don't know. I mean, when you came into the picture, it just immediately perked me up, in terms of where you were going with this. I would assume you had to spend quite some time, for lack of a better word, grooming this guy to get to where you got to.
No, I don't think so. I think really it wasn't just my effort. I mean, I think that needs to be put out there too. Yeah. There were a few people, talking to him, and one specifically that we all know and love. But she was really able to kind of stay in his ear and make sure that he stayed around.
Right.
There were many times that I thought that he was just going to leave. And that was just because I was looking at it from the perspective of a reasonable person.
Right.
So I'm thinking there's no way somebody's going to stay on the line after what just happened. And I've even had with my own interaction with him where I am screaming and I'm berating him like there is no tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, this is it. He's never going to talk to me again. And then I would get an email or, a message basically apologizing from him. So
that would really surprise you that he would.
It did. Mm-hmm. I think certainly the first couple of times It surprised me because, again, I'm looking at it from the perspective of a reasonable person, and
Right.
it's hard to believe. I think what intrigued me the most was that I thought that everything was going to be over when Ramona left. I couldn't imagine that this person would actually pick up the phone again. And he did, and he did very easily.
And why do you think that was? Is there a specific thing that's changed your opinion about him? That because obviously, if you, and to be honest, I've been in that position before where I didn't think he'd get catfished again. Is there a specific thing that you didn't consider about his character that made you think, well, actually, no, he'll learn his lesson? Is there something that now you're a bit more aware of? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in actually speaking with him directly and being involved in that way, I got to hear more. So I got a real sense of his loneliness and desperation. He doesn't have anyone.
No.
So
Do you think that's deservedly so?
Well, self-induced. It definitely is. But it's not just reputation alone. It's also, I assume he kind of exacerbates it also, with whatever he's done in the past. But
yeah, I think so. I think he's quite shy too.
Yeah.
I know that now, he doesn't have any friends because he doesn't want to have to explain what he did. It's very embarrassing for him, of course. But to approach someone at work or, socially in any way, is going to involve someone getting to know him, and he doesn't really want that. So it's a lot safer for him to be approached by someone who already knows his story, and to be able to go from there.
That's what's really interesting. I think a lot of people know his story up there.
They do, definitely.
I think a lot of people in probation know a story. It's their job to know a story.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It's a great monitoring technique they could use. But as a matter of fact, they wouldn't be doing their jobs if they weren't listening to this. And I'm sure they're listening right now. But when Lorne goes up to probation in Bangor, I would assume that it's kind of like a day that everyone has in their calendar. I'm talking about pretrial services department. I'm talking about even the marshals next door. They probably look forward to him coming in just to get a view of him, just like we would. But he must feel like Ed Norton in Fight Club, where he runs for help and everybody is part of the conspiracy. He's a constant state of paranoia. He's got to be, unless he's too stupid. I don't know. You tell me. I think he's smarter than I originally gave him credit for, actually. But I think that in terms of how he can manipulate and keep his true feelings to himself, and that he has done until you broke it out of him. I mean, that takes some degree of cleverness to keep that.
That's a really interesting thing to talk about, that, because I've always said he's got a little bit more. People will grumble at this, but a little bit more intelligence than people give him credit for. But his intelligence is directed in the wrong area. His intelligence is directed at self-deception. Now, as I've said before, self-deception is a human trait which is remarkable. It's probably the best thing apart from making T-shirts, it's the best thing the human race is good at. And him especially, with his self-deception, it's like in every single area of his life, he convinces himself he's a country music star, he convinces himself viable women will like him, he convinces himself he's not done anything wrong, he convinces himself that he would never have done it, all these different things, and he comes up with these crazy stories in his head about perverted justice being corrupt and everybody's against him, and it's like, you're just thinking, your imagination is fantastic. If you directed that in a more positive way, maybe you could have actually made something of your life.
Well, actually, I think you're giving him a little more credit there, but I think he could have been at least not arrested for things like this.
Well, more positive is not a lot where Lorne's concerned, is it?
No, you're right. And you know what? As I said earlier, this goofy guy that I thought we were dealing with fooled me. And Tiffany's the one who brought that out, and that's what we're about to talk about, because I think there's something more sinister and insidious about him than we all thought. This child porn thing.
Well,
Was that
that's what we the sort of one of the topics of it for anybody that doesn't know, and I think we're all right to sort of mention it because it's something that happened in a call that was broadcast. It was shown on Clubbing Times channel. He went through it. And Tiffany, I'd just like to ask you before we get down and talk about it, what you remember he said to you, because it was an unsolicited comment. In other words, you didn't press him. Did you just... Basically, he said that he received a file that had genuine child pornography pictures on it. Now, can you tell us what you remember about what he said to you?
Yes, it was one photo. And I don't remember how it came up. If he was talking about perverted justice and how they're corrupt and, essentially they were trolling him from the very start. And he had said originally that he received an email. And I don't know if he was saying that mistakenly. I know that my grandmother said things like, I got an email, but it was really a text message, type of a thing.
Yeah.
But he was using the Yahoo Messenger at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story sort of changed when it was brought up again, in that he said he received it in the Messenger. So he received a notification that he was getting a file and he downloaded it, and it happened to be child pornography. He's stating that he knows it was perverted justice, but in reality, he doesn't. Because I had asked him, well, how do you know? And he kind of, fumbles his way through that and ends up basically saying he doesn't know, but he feels like it was them because apparently it happened while he was talking to Kayla.
right? That time frame is very important.
Yeah.
But you also said the delivery system was either an email or messenger. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah. He originally said it was an email, and then at a later point, I don't remember when, he had said that it came through the messenger as like an instant message, and it had a file attached to it.
And that's just one photo, he said.
He mentioned one photo.
One photo could be 100. You never know with these guys. But
it could, yeah.
Well, to me, I mean, obviously, I thought the Xavier, blame that he was throwing, I thought that was fed to him, during the trolling of him, and that's how he got that idea. I don't think there's any evidence that he had it came from anybody else, but I think just the existence of it. I mean, ask yourself, how many of us have ever received, even inadvertently, child porn attachment to your email?
Yeah, let's just like to sort of clarify a few things here. We obviously don't have any proof, and the last thing I want to do, and it's not necessary, is to try and throw more hate and dislike at Lorne for something he's potentially not done. So I'd just like to clarify, we're only going off what he said. The reason I think this is important is because it was an unsolicited comment. In other words, this came straight from his brain. There was no reason for him to divulge that information. Tiffany didn't press him for it. And like Tiffany just said, it's not something she can remember exactly how it came about, but I think I remember it was almost like he was trying to defend himself in some way by saying, well, I got a file and then I deleted it, as if to make him out appear to be better. Does that make any sense, Tiffany? Do you think that's...
Well, before she answers that, let me just say this real quick, Andrew. I agree with you. The only thing I'm discussing is the evidence. Again,
yeah, of course. But I just wanted to make it clear in the chat, because it's very easy. I'm sure everybody's, rounded enough to not do this, but, let's not... We're just presenting the evidence forward, and people can make their own mind up about what. And I think it brings some interesting points up.
Yeah. Okay.
So the point is, sorry.
You asked Tiffany a question. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just saying, Tiffany. Do you agree, or from what you remember, it was something like he was trying to? It was his brain said something that it probably shouldn't have done, but in a way he was trying to say, "Well, I got a file, but I deleted it." Does that make any sense?
I believe that he was saying that as a way of giving evidence that perverted justice was after him.
Yes.
And they were trying to send him, photos and things like that in order to demonstrate that that's exactly what they were doing, that he didn't ask for it, and it just showed up.
Well, in that effort, Tiffany, do you think he actually received it, or he's just making that up?
Um, I don't see him admitting something like that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I had asked him, because obviously this is several years later that I'm talking to him. So I asked him what color was her hair, and I wanted to see how well he knew that picture. And he immediately answered. So, and he knew the scenario
What
that
was the answer,
happening.
Tiffany? Can you remember?
It was brown.
Right.
But he knew exactly what the photo was. And so
he described the act. Did he describe the act that was taking place?
He did. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
even if he made something, that's sick.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. I didn't get the sense that he was making it up. Of course, there's no way for me to really know.
Yeah.
The other thing is, of course, we know that when something is deleted from a computer, it's not really deleted.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I don't know, what it takes to forensically search a hard drive or anything like that.
Shin.
Well, it's funny.
Your legal background.
Yeah, you and I talked about this. Well, first of all, getting metadata is different today than it used to be. So back in 2007, I don't recall having a case like that. But my guess is that, just based on the theory that nothing truly gets erased on a hard drive, that they can probably recover that. And then if I were to take this even further, I would assume they had that evidence. Because the reason why I'm saying this is because one of the things they jammed Lorne up with is the child pornography charge, the attempted production of it. And I used to think, well, there's a lot more ways they could have jammed him up. They could have split every night that he did it into a separate count, because he had a chance to think about it. He reflected, and he went ahead and did it and exposed himself again. So that could have been 30 counts. So they could have jammed him up that way. That's one way. But they chose this route, and I always wondered if this is maybe what they had in their possession, and to the point where they know he's a purveyor of it, at least, and now it looks like he's producing it, and it wouldn't be outside, and perhaps that evidence would have been brought in their case in chief on that count, on that indictment. So there's a good chance that Tiffany, that you're right, that they may have very well have had that information, and Lorne didn't know about it yet, and that's why they went to to press him to plea using the child porn instead of, for instance, a 30 count or the attempted kidnapping or all these other felonies that they could have gotten with. It's just interesting to me that there may be a correlation. I don't know.
But what do you think? His computer would have been examined, Shin, do we believe?
Oh, yeah.
So when Lorne said he deleted the file, because there's a few interesting points here. I didn't even consider the fact that he might be making it up to make perverted justice appear more sort of vindictive and corrupt. My original inkling when I listened to it was he got that file off someone. He may not even remember how he got it, but he requested it, and he's using perverted justice because in his brain they're out to get him. So of course that's how he's going to remember he got the file. But
that would make him feel safe about making the admission.
No, it's.
If you could blame perverted justice if that strengthens his case against perverted justice, he can go ahead and make that admission. Because if it was in fact found, we're finding stuff all the time in his legal file. I don't think we're ever going to get into the prosecutor's file. That's totally different than the public record. But maybe he knows, I don't know, that it would have been discovered or something. Or he felt comfortable enough to tell Tiffany only because now he can stick with his narrative that was perverted justice setting him up. When in fact, remember I told you there's not much evidentiary value you get out of his mouth. It's what he's trying to say is typically a lie, but you get the nuggets of truth with other ways. For instance, I believe that this was sent to him. Obviously, you don't have to be Captain Obvious by saying perverted justice didn't send it to him.
Well, no, it's highly unlikely that that file, if he got it, would have been sent to him unrequested. It's possible, but what are the odds? Right? What are the odds that actually was sent to him by accident?
The case is, again, limited my limited experience in this, but the cases I've seen, typically it's a cadre of them. It's typically they share share them back and forth. They hang on to him. Look at Dustin. Dustin had his own guy too.
Yeah.
These are not done without having communication with other people with the same perversion.
There is one point I'd like to bring up though. I'd like to hear what you both think about this. Let's look at, because the reason I think this is an important point is because let's just say that he did have that file, he requested it, he looked at it, and he got something out of it. We already know that he was planning to produce his own form of child pornography. That's why he got hit with the charges. He even said in the chat, and you both have mentioned it to me on separate occasions, that he wanted to hide the faces, so he knew legally that he was on very shaky ground. Very shaky. So that's a big point, and we knew that years ago. What this says to me is, if he had that file and he was looking at these things, it changes a lot about him being this opportunist that I thought he was. In other words, he's got more of a darker side to him than even I knew. But there's one, playing devil's advocate a little bit, is I just want to sort of say, if he requested that file and he got it and he liked it, why would he have deleted it? Was he scared or?
Well, my guess is they probably share warnings with each other, things like that. Burn this on a CD and then get rid of it off your hard drive, something like that, and hide it. I don't know what they do. But my guess is that he had some kind of evasive maneuver ready to go, just like he did with Koala, with having her call the other, call the Jesse back so that the last number wasn't his and all that crap. But, he did practice that. So I think that could be in the same realm, of him just trying to delete his archives, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe, but he only wanted Kayla to delete her archives in case her parents found out. He didn't think. Lorne thought he was too clever to get caught by the cops, didn't he?
Yes.
It's true, though, if you think about it, the way he strutted into that house, and I think I remember you mentioning it, Tiffany, in one of the calls, where he was a bit cocky and a bit arrogant, and it adds to the weight of, what's the word, it adds to your anger, or everybody's anger, when you look at him and you try and look at what he did. His sort of cocky Mancunian stride, as he kind of, I said that because we have a bit of a swagger, the way that he walks in, it adds more weight to the dislike that you throw at him, because you're thinking, how fucking dare you? How dare you? Do you understand what I mean? Well, of course you do. You're talking to the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was cocky all the way through. And certainly when he drove there and he walked into the house, the only time that he felt regret was when Chris Hansen walked out, and he admitted that too.
Well, I got to ask you about that, Zach, but let me make this one comment about that real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
When he was all giddy and happy and dumb and stupid coming in, that's the guy I want to hear from. Not the guy who was caught afterwards and trying to make excuses, rationalization, and that's what you brought up. With this old predilection of his and the child porn and that stuff. That's the guy I always. That's what prosecutors are always looking for. They don't care what he says now. They're trying to figure out who he was then, and that was really, really helpful. Really helpful. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have no idea what I was talking about. Sorry.
We always do that.
Happens all the time to me. Trust me.
Yeah, tell me about it. No, I mean, I suppose, really, now we're going into it, we can't be sure. This is why I think it's important for people to, for us all to sort of, as I'm sure people will do anyway, to make your own mind up, because it's a serious thing, this. If he asked for that file and got that, it changes the landscape of what he was doing in that chat room. Now, we know what he was after. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, anybody, we all know, and obviously the only person that doesn't is him. But for me, let's just theorize, okay, that he did request that file, and he had that gross picture on there of whatever it was. We don't need to go into it. It's not important. that says to me that he was specifically interested in also recreating that photograph, which he said in the chat, and that his this opportunist that I thought he was didn't really exist, and he had a specific goal.
I think he was scaling up. I think he was getting worse.
Yeah.
I think he absolutely was getting. Yeah, he was definitely getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was finally taking action on his impulses.
Yeah, and this is something that was brought up too, was that the internet gave him the ability to do that.
Yeah.
He knew very well that doing that in his real life with people in his area, or face to face that he likes to say, would be impossible, really. That's so risky, and he wasn't willing to do that. That was too much. But having the internet where it's essentially anonymous, or at least he thought that it was, he was able to act out on all of this stuff. He was going after these girls.
Yeah.
Because we know that Kayla was not the only one.
No.
And unfortunately, I don't think that the decoys were the only ones.
No.
I think I mean, he would talk about the rooms that he would go into was the country music rooms, where he would sing and get blocked, by the way, because he would hog the microphone.
Oh, I'd pay money to see one of them recordings if they exist.
Oh, me too.
Wait a minute, he didn't get a producer's card? He didn't get a producer's card?
He didn't. No, not this time.
Okay.
But then also he was talking about, I think they were in regional chat rooms, or the state chat rooms, I believe is how they got everybody, right? So they would go into like the Tennessee or Kentucky chat rooms. And that, I know Dustin had mentioned it in his interview. So I'm assuming it was kind of the same thing for Lorne, because if they knew they're going to do a sting in a particular area, they don't want to just do something random. That might be too random.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were targeting a certain area. So I'm sure that those were not the only rooms that he was going into. And I know that Yahoo had the ability for users to make their own rooms in the adult area. Mm-hmm. So they could be anything, as disgusting as you would want it to be, they would have a room for it. So I know for a fact that he would have, well, I don't know for a fact, but it's a huge assumption, and I believe it to be true, is that he would have gone into those rooms. And there would be people just like him.
Yeah.
So mm-hmm.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Please go.
So I think having access to someone who's going to have child pornography would have been really easy for him. And I was also, something that popped into my head too, is maybe he had another user ID that he used.
Do you think he's clever enough for that, Tiff?
Well, he could
sort of
the leader archives. I mean, he knows the system well enough to cover the cracks.
Does he though? I mean,
that to encrypt his encoded phone number was very difficult. I mean, he's good, you know that.
Yeah, and he was swapping all the. We've got to. Do you remember that when he thought he was going to get them to break up because he thought the Yahoo police was watching? That wasn't. He hadn't really thought that through properly, had he? Because it was a bit of a silly ploy, which if you looked at it on the surface wouldn't have fucking changed anything. But I suppose I mean, he could have done. But I agree with you, Tiffany. It wouldn't have been difficult for him to get that if he wanted it, would it? But that, but
especially if he gets tips from other pedophiles. That's how you learn these things, right? I assume.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. We don't know, but if I could just ask you directly, Tiffany, I mean, I think it's fair to say you know him for better or worse, better than any. Exactly, you probably know his inkling, shall we say, better than any of us, and obviously, you know a bit about his past because you've been because you've spoke to him. What's your opinion? What's your educated guess about that file? What do you think it was?
Do I think it was legitimate, you mean?
Do you think that because we've discussed the point that maybe he made it up to make perverted justice appear worse? Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, if that's what he was going to do, that's a pretty good way of coming up with an elaborate lie, isn't it? You'd say they deliberately sent me child porn. That's something that you would conjure up. So there's a good argument that he made that up to make them appear worse than they did. Personally, I don't think he did. but I'd just like to know what your opinion is. Do you think he specifically requested that file?
I'm going to say yes, he did. Even if he didn't request it, he could have been speaking to someone and they could have been having a conversation that was along those lines. And it could have been a woman too. I don't think he was chatting with men. He's very specific about that. So it could have been a woman, or he thought so anyway. But they could have been having a conversation that was going along with his fantasy, and she sent it to him or asked if he wanted to see something. I don't know that he would have made it up. The only thing that obviously I would want to know more about is the investigation into his computer. And obviously, just like Shin had said earlier, things today are much different than they were back then. And if there was truly only one file, I can see how it could be missed, I suppose. But again, I don't know what goes into searching something forensically. So not that they wouldn't be able to find it, but you figure if there's one file, maybe they didn't.
I just like, something just popped in my head as well, right? Which is a dangerous thing considering the subject matter. But if he said to you that on the call that when he got that file it was disgusting, so he deleted it immediately.
Yeah.
Now, if he had that, let's just say well, we know he's not telling the truth, but that doesn't make any sense because he was trying to create his own version of that. He was trying to have sex with a 13-year-old girl. So why would that image be so disgusting to him? So that's a lie.
It is a lie.
Well, consider also the chat log. How many hairs do you have down there? You know, that's an interesting, focus. It makes it sound like somebody.
But it's a common focus among these people, isn't it? And even Chris Hansen says that in the program that it's
exactly. That makes him one of these people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just.
Well, in our opinion, let's preface all this.
Of course, we've only got words and his words, and the twisted brain of Lorne Armstrong isn't something that we can decipher in one conversation. So obviously people have got to make their own mind up. Like we've always said, we don't want people, sending him explosive letters in the mail or anything.
That's why I think the delivery system is important here, because I think if it came from his email, it could have come from his past before he got to Nashville. It could have come from somebody he was talking to already before that. If it came from his messengers, chances are, maybe he started picking it up then. But then you got the issues about his inappropriate behavior around his nieces. You got all of these weird, he tries to come off as some kind of a white knight or something, but it turns out it's like a creepy thing.
And he brings up a sexual element with his nieces, in my opinion, in the chat, where he says they tried to buy shorts and I didn't like it, so I told them off. Like when they were talking about like skimpy clothing or something.
The idea they tried to go into a chat room and he prevented them from doing that. That sounds like Daniel Polito, but it sounds like he was helicoptering them or something. He was giving them way too much attention. Like if I had my daughter when she was 13, I wouldn't be looking over her shoulder on a computer, and I actually trust her, but I wouldn't be watching her all the time that vigilantly like he would be. And his interest was different than my interest in my daughter. So. The delivery system I think is important because that could maybe give us a little bit more information about that. But also I think that if it happened in the messaging.
Are you clicking your pen, Shin?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's that loud.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry.
I actually caught myself doing that earlier too. But I think a lot of times if he started in the chat room, I think he probably never got to the point, obviously, where he could start exposing himself and getting sexual, because I think he frankly bored the shit out of people. I think that's what happened a lot. So I think, especially a 13-year-old girl, I mean, I don't think his unless they were a decoy, they'd be interested in talking to him. He just didn't have anything to say, aside from luring him with a dog, maybe. That's about it. But,
yeah, I mean, I know, sorry to interrupt you. I was just thinking about being a 13-year-old girl. I was one at one point. And I know that if I were to be in a chat room, I would be completely freaked out by someone approaching me in their 30s. Yeah. I would have been like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm not
Yeah,
talking
and
to you
there's that
about that.
too. I mean, he's
Yeah.
got a few obstacles to get through before he gets to a
Yeah.
precious princess. But
Right. Exactly.
here's the other thing. Andrew, do you want to talk about what kind of bolsters this argument that this guy is not the animal we thought he was, but he's worse in terms of the child porn and what I thought one of the biggest revelation aside from that, because that's evidentiary. They can probably try to find that. But when she got out of him, the idea that he was turned on by sexual assault, juvenile or children sexual assault victims.
I'd like to touch upon that. I mean, guys, if you've not already figured this out, this is not one of these streams I do where we talk about his funniest moments. We're getting a bit dark and a bit deep in this, so it's probably take a specific time and mood that you're going to be in. There's not going to be much comedy shortly, but maybe we can do that at the end of the stream. But
head here, or I'm just wondering because it seems like it would really bolster our argument here if you throw that in, if you couple that in with.
Oh yeah, of course. I remember listening to that part, Tiffany, and this isn't. Please don't take this the wrong way, because I can't find fault with anything that you said to him. But it was almost like you were leading him with the questions because you believed that was the case, and he was just replying yes. Does that make? I hope I'm not being unfair by saying that.
That's called cross-examination.
Yeah.
Which he did, and they're all leading questions: yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And again, he gave a narrative on some of them. She was perfect.
Right. Well, they're from the expert himself. So yeah. So yeah. How did you? What's your recollection of that, Tiffany?
Of when he disclosed how he first started having these fantasies.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised by it.
Really?
No, I wasn't, because his position had always been, I never had these thoughts until I was talking to Kayla, which wasn't true. I knew that was not
impossible,
true. It
isn't
doesn't
it?
just happen. Absolutely. So I had to know, where did this come from? Where did it start? And at one point he said that, he would hear about things and he would hear about them on the news. And that's kind of where the whole story started. So it really takes away, his narrative of what he was telling himself and telling everyone else. This was a one-time thing. I don't like little girls. And it was because I was really low in my life and all that kind of bullshit that he spews on a regular basis. And there was just no way that it all of a sudden happened.
Well, we knew there was Kimmy Coke. We knew there was Disney Girl, and we knew there was Molly. So we knew he was lying when he says that. But now that's the actual truth, what you just got out of him. Mm-hmm. But you weren't shocked by that. That's interesting, because I got to say that is something that he could have kept deep buried into his head, and nobody could ever find that out. I would assume.
No, definitely not. It wasn't something that I predicted as far as that being the reason. Yeah. I just knew that there was a reason. There was something earlier than as soon as he, clicked on Kayla's name and said hi.
But it's interesting that he picks abuse victims to be aroused by. Well, I guess they're all abuse victims, but.
Well, what's another interesting part, and I don't think that it's in any of the calls, and I can't remember when exactly this happened, but he was asked the question once, and I don't even think that it was me, but he had asked the questions like, if you could go back in time and, who are your most hated people? So obvious, there's some obvious answers to that, like a Hitler or something. Mm-hmm. And he picked two people that all had to do with young girls. And so he said that he hated the gymnastics doctor. For what? And Andrew, I'm not sure if you would be aware of this man, but he was.
I don't know. So if you like to.
Yeah, he was U.S. Olympic gymnastics physician. What was his name again? It was Greek.
Dr. Nasser.
Nasser, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was the physician for the U.S. gymnastics, and he had molested hundreds of girls, right?
Yeah.
It was a huge amount.
Yeah.
But he was so well regarded and, you know, what he did and everything. So it came out recently, and now he's in prison for the rest of his life. But it bothered him. Yeah. And he picked that person. And then I believe that there was a serial killer somewhere, I think maybe in California or something, that was targeting young girls. And he had killed, you know, a couple of teenage girls. So it was really interesting to me that those were his hated people.
What did that say to you?
That he thinks about young girls a lot.
He's following it.
Is that not projection of his guilt? So in other words, is he not trying to alleviate his own guilty conscience by... It's like an ego thing. It's like, I hate people who do this to children. In his own mind, he's trying to deflect it away from himself and also to anybody else, as if to say, because it's the same thing about when he says, I spent all my life protecting children. What a load of bollocks. His idea of protecting children is not abusing them.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. I think that came out once.
Yeah.
But what's also interesting is how he would keep up with those stories. It seems to me that a story in California about that, you know, I'm usually a big, you know, true crime story kind of fan.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, but I don't, you know, I don't recall a particular person like that in California. I'm sure there is, and maybe it just slips my mind. But it's interesting that he keeps up with that. It's almost like maybe he's, I don't know, that definitely perks his interest.
It perks his interest, and I think that's important to point out, because those are the types of stories that he would have really been paying attention to. And in particular with the gymnastics doctor, that is his perfect scenario. Oh yeah. Absolutely. To be in a position like that, he wouldn't see it as being abusive, I don't think. He knows that it was wrong. He knows that obviously this man is in prison, but it's still a fantasy of his. You know, for someone who's going to be turned on by a story of sexual abuse and molestation, that, I mean, how much more can you have than someone who's done it to hundreds of kids?
That could be the basis of his disdain for doctors, right?
Well, no? Only if they have horse stings.
He wouldn't pass up on that. You know, you know, then there was one. I'm sorry, Andrew. Do you want something to say?
No. Carry on.
I was going to say there was one part where, and I know this was early on in your discussions with him, because when he did a live stream with CT, and she said it was about a couple of weeks afterwards. But you were discussing, and again, I don't know if it's true or not, but the abuse that you suffered at the hands of your stepfather. And again, we weren't given any specifics on it, but he was enraged. He was, but the rage I thought was really weird, because he seemed like he was mad at you. Okay. And he was mad at you because he kept saying over and over, you know, I want you to stand up for yourself, you know, and then when it came to his father, he was so mad at your father because he says it grosses him out. Interesting words, right? Not that he victimized you, not that he, you know, so to me, it's almost like he's asking you to repudiate it, as if to say, it's almost like he felt like he was jealous. That's what it felt like. That's what it sounds like. If you put the context of what we're talking about now, where he has sexual thoughts about sexual abuse victims, and here he has one in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when he says it grosses me out, that is one of his biggest put downs, I guess, or you know, almost the strongest thing that he can say about someone is, you gross me out. He had referred to people grossing him out like his siblings. You know, I think that maybe it was even in his video that he made talking about the mac and cheese incidents. And he would say things like, they're disgusting people, they're gross.
Yeah.
You know, so that, you know, using that term is almost the strongest thing that he can say. I'm not really sure why that is. But
he would say it bothers him. Yes.
Oh my gosh. If you want
that was winding you up, wasn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah, all he has to say is, it bothered me. And I'm like, oh my God, get over here so I can throw something at you.
Kelpill just suggested, do you think that other person he was talking about was Edmund Kemper? Does that ring a bell? The child predator, serial killer in California?
It could have been. I believe that he said something about California, and again, we're going way back, and
Right.
I could be getting it wrong, but that's very possible that he was talking about that
The world would
person.
be a better place by getting rid of him instead of Stalin or Hitler. Gotcha.
Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Why would you? I mean, I get it. They're all bad, but why
Yeah.
is that your particular time? If you want to even go more recent with like Saddam Hussein or Bin Laden or some of the obvious answers that I think people could say.
Genocide, how about that?
Mhm.
How about that?
Yeah, yeah.
There's still in there too.
I think the points we've been kind of, talking about is, from my perspective, I've mentioned this when we did the video with Adam last week, Tiffany, is that Lorne, from what you've got out of him, is even worse than I thought, and I feel stupid for admitting that in a way. But to sort of defend myself a little bit, he's worse than you thought as well, isn't he, Shin?
Yeah, I think he manipulated me. It worked, and that's really rare because I don't believe anybody.
And you believe Lorne?
Well, no. In terms of, I thought he was
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think the better way of saying it is I thought he was limited. I didn't think that he had the capacity to actually act on his thoughts to this extent. I thought he was he's one of the biggest things he is lazy. So I didn't think he would have that kind of I don't know. He surprised me, but let's see. He is sneaky though. For favor here, and there's a lot of signs. I'm wondering now whether this guy is physically dangerous. And the reason why I'm asking that now is because when I look at him, when I kind of size him up, it kind of reminds me, if you go to the first day of, say, a football tryout, of American football, Andy, and you could tell the guys that hate to get hit and be hit. He seemed like that kind of guy to me. He seemed like he was timid. But then I'm hearing these stories about him beating the crap out of Roy with real physical violence. Is that true? Are these just pushing down like things, or are they actually throwing hands? What's going on there? Is he actually?
I think they do in a sense. And it all has to do with them being intoxicated. So I think that really obviously escalates things. I think that Lorne is a good de-escalator, actually, which is kind of strange in how angry he gets. But when there are interactions with Roy, and Roy is just a rager, that was one of the things that I noticed about him. When they were interacting together and Roy would be intoxicated, he would get so angry, and that's the guy I would be afraid of. But really? Yeah, I think so. With Lorne, I think that he's the type of guy that I don't think he would hit someone. He would definitely throw things, he would slam things around, and he would be the type of person that would be in your face screaming and probably holding you and maybe shaking you or something, but I don't think he would actually hit.
Where I'm getting at this thing is let's say that Kayla was real.
Yeah.
Let's say that he picked her up and he had enough gas to get back and brought her to the apartment and did his crime, and then suddenly she got scared. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to be there anymore. Mm-hmm. And maybe she was making too much noise. And Lorne was afraid of detection. Or maybe she did this in public, but Lorne was, there was a situation where Lorne could have suppressed her somehow. He could have grabbed her. He could have done that. Do you think it would be beyond him? What would he do in that situation, what do you think? I mean, would he panic and do something terrible to avoid detection to Kayla? Do you think that's in him? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because I'm not sure now. I remember Bay Shaman put out a video of just a fiction of what would happen if it was kind of in a novel form, and it was pretty disturbing to me. But yeah. I can imagine him doing something even inadvertently, like trying to hold her mouth to a point where he inadvertently killed her that way, suffocated her or something, from screaming, something like that. And because let's face it, he didn't plan things out, obviously. I mean, what would happen if Kayla's parents did call home to check in on her? They became worried, so they called the police for a welfare check. And then suddenly, when Lorne's bringing her back, there are cops everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What would he do? He would turn around and go somewhere and drop her off. I don't know what he would do. But I'm just wondering if, murder would be his way out on that one, whether that would be a possibility. Probably.
I don't know if that would have been something that he considered or thought out. Like, okay, what is the worst case scenario here? Do I have to kill her?
No, I didn't do that, but I think it would be invert, maybe what they call reckless. Maybe she jumped out of a moving vehicle.
Yeah.
I mean, but that wouldn't be on him, but obviously it would be because he wouldn't stop the vehicle. But something bad, I think, could have happened easily.
I think that he would have wanted to imagine that he established a loving relationship with her.
Trust.
And that, and trust. And be like, if she really did get scared and she started to panic, that he could talk her down. And he would say, okay, I'll take you home, no problem. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't, I don't think it would have escalated beyond that. Who knows?
Yeah. I think for some reason, I wrote this in the comment, I think there's a 25% chance he would have gotten violent. But if you look at it the other way, it's 75% chance he wouldn't have. But for all of us, it's 100%. So that's still a big number. But I'm just, what would have happened? This could have been the best thing that ever happened to him, actually, by getting caught.
I think it is. I think you had mentioned that he was ramping up, and that's absolutely true. And I had also mentioned to him too that there was going to be another Kayla. There was going to be so many more. Yeah. And it was going to keep happening until he got busted. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he said yes. So.
Well, one kind of thing that I was thinking about, because I was thinking today about, the avenues we were going to talk about and what, how we were going to discuss things. And because I read a lot of books about like philosophy, spirituality, as I mentioned in my videos a lot. And I think that Lorne, it's a very interesting subject to me, the human spirit. What makes someone make the decisions they make? A lot of it is like mental conditioning and your upbringing, but you have to have like a certain level of consciousness to make good decisions and be courageous and stay on the right side of living, really. Lorne hasn't. I'm wondering if he has the level of consciousness that's required to face up to what he's done. My theory was always that if his psychological walls that he's created, if his bullshit broke down, he'd have a total mental breakdown. A total mental breakdown of.
I thought that too.
And that's not to sort of advocate his way, because he's had decisions and he's always made the right ones. Well, for him, as far as he was concerned, he's always made the wrong ones. And as you touched upon, Tiffany, when you're talking to him, and even he says himself, but I think he's just telling you what you want to hear in some occasions. Every decision that he makes that has got him into trouble, it's because it's selfish. He always makes something that will benefit him in some way, but he's that stupid and lacking in wisdom. He doesn't know what decisions are best for him, so he's consistently fucking up. And the drink drive is a perfect example, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't think that he's got the ability to do what we want him to do in a way. Does that make any sense, Tiff?
It does. Certainly, I think he needs therapy. I think he needs to have. But
you're as good. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tiffany, but my belief is that he won't get any better therapy than what you're doing with him on the calls that I've heard.
I think they should take over from you. I think they should take. Here you go. Your patient's ready.
Oh Jesus!
You get paid for it.
Oh my gosh, you should. no, if you think about it, look at all the time and resources they wasted on him with his delusions.
It's frightening. Doesn't that highlight a lot about the system and the sex offender management system in America? Not to make any judgments because I don't know shit about it, but the evidence available would suggest it's completely insufficient.
Yeah, I said this in a comment once. I said that we should send this recording over with a note attached saying this is how it's done.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, I think, well, number one, I think one of the issues is that he's not honest. And in order for therapy to be effective, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and talk about how you're feeling, what your thoughts are, so that you can have someone who is educated and is going to be able to talk it over and to sort things out. And why are you feeling this way? And how can we make you better? But that's never going to happen if someone isn't going to be willing to be honest and to be an active participant in their treatment.
Well, that's on the therapist too. I mean, to make sure that happens.
Yeah, sure. And if he's not being honest, shouldn't there be? I mean, we're probably getting into ground that there's no point talking about. But if he's, I agree with you, Tiffany. If he's not being honest, what can they do? But ultimately, why spend years and years doing it if he's not being honest with them? You have a call it a day, or you send him back to prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the way that his sentence is, you couldn't send him back to prison for that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're getting on things that there's no point discussing because it's it's law and procedures that are in place.
I firmly believe he belongs in prison.
Oh yeah, everyone who's tried something like that who hasn't fully reformed, which he hasn't, doesn't belong in society.
No, he doesn't, and he likes to present himself as, this is who I was in the past, and it's not who he is now, and and that's not true.
Yeah, and he's doing that to be presentable to,
sure,
because he sees this, what he deems as his fan base, and he wants to come back, and I think he'll come back redeemed. I think this is his ultimate plan here. I mean, that's pretty much all he's got in his life, really. I mean, if he can be accepted in the church that has a built-in fan base, well, and that's a very liberal way of putting it, but in his view, I think he's just trying to make himself acceptable to the community. I think that's his attempt here. And of course, to you, he wants you more than anything.
I know.
But on that note, let me ask you just a question off the wall. Do you think that if Lorne was, when the KBI interrogated Lorne, do you think instead of sending Ken Dillingham, whatever his name is, instead of sending him in, if they sent a woman like Kate, you think they would have gotten more out of him?
I don't think so. No. He was in panic mode.
Yeah.
Especially then, and his thing that he kept saying was, I never meant to do it. I can't believe I was so stupid to do that. But he also was smart enough to know that he needs to stop talking. Yeah.
That's very true.
Well, you know what happens in those situations? They make that decision when the hard question comes up.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah.
That's when that happens. And that's why you got to tell them, well, you don't have to answer that one. You could just, we could just go past that. But apparently once they invoke that right, you got to shut it down.
Right.
But,
was there like a moment, Tiffany, when you were talking to him, like one shocking moment where you kind of thought, shit, this guy is worse than I thought? Was the one, I might have even asked you this question before, apologies if I haven't, but I find it quite interesting. Is there one specific moment or several where you thought, this guy's more fucked up than I thought? Do you know what I mean? Or did it develop slowly? Well, that's assuming he's worse than you thought, which I assume he is.
Yeah.
You knew about as much as we did going in, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. When I first went in, it was going to be fun. It was like, he's a fascinating person. His ideas that he has for the wrong reasons, but when he's just talking in general, he has strange ideas and responses to things, and you're kind of looking for that. He loves to sing. He loves to scream doing that, and so you get a lot of that. And so it can be interesting to see how he's going to react, given whatever situation he happens to be in. And the fact that he lies all the time. He's a prolific liar. And, so it was like, okay, is he drunk right now? And the answer was usually yes. And you can tell, by the way he's talking, or, he has definite patterns. There was one really funny moment when he was trying to pretend like he wasn't driving drunk, and he wanted to make it seem like he had a friend there who picked him up. But then he got busted because he gets into his car, and he made it sound like this person who said, okay, come on. But he was talking to himself. You heard nothing on the other end of there being another person. And I happened to say, well, have him say hi. And his response to that was, well, he doesn't talk.
He's mute.
He's in mute. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, Lorne, I mean, come on.
What a sneaky son of a bitch. Oh my God.
Right. So he just, that type of stuff is bizarre, and also fascinating at the same time. But I think he definitely is a lot worse of a person than I originally thought. I think I had the position that a lot of people did, is that, he's just kind of this goofy person.
A goofy opportunist pervert. That's what I thought he was.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that there's always the reference made of like, we'll just go back to the chat log and you're going to see who he really is. And that's absolutely true. I think that I got the most offended by him when Winnie's daughter came onto the scene, and his interactions with her, and how it just made you realize that there's nothing stopping him at all. How
old is Winnie's daughter, allegedly?
She was not underage.
Okay.
But she was 18, I believe. But she was not underage. But it was just the point. It was the point that this is a daughter. And there's absolutely no stopping him at all. He doesn't have, the thing that he would spout off, when it would come to light that he had been inappropriate with her. He would make the excuse that, oh, I was doing it because she was going to go get drugs, or, whatever. And he tries to come up with these reasons that are noble. And they're not. You can see right through them. And I think that's just what made me see, he would absolutely go after another child if he felt safe. Yeah, 100%.
It's similar to the predator's typical excuse. They came there to, or they said all these dirty things to teach the child a lesson.
Yeah.
The same kind of thing. It's the same kind of excuse. I mean, they all say the same thing, and they all are the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that type of stuff was, it was really, it started to get really dark for me during those moments. And, that's, I don't know, it's really, you don't want to believe that about someone, but obviously.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, it's a strange situation because I've made videos about this guy for a while and met some great people through it and had some good experiences and that kind of thing. I think there's a part of me that doesn't have an affection for him, but wants to think of him in a more positive light. But your calls have highlighted to me that there's very little there, and it seems almost silly after the chat log, but I always wanted to think there was a part of him that knew what he was doing was wrong. And the more that I listen to him, the more I think listen, he's a human being. People don't want to see him as that sometimes. We're all guilty of dehumanizing him at some point because of the nature of what he's done. It's like I've said, if there's one thing that humans do that piss people off, it's trying to hurt children. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse. So of course it's understandable that we vilify him, but it's like when you're drilling down on what it was in his mind that prevents him from admitting it, it's like he doesn't have this any kind of moral compass whatsoever. There isn't a part of him that would stop and think, you know what, only bad people do this. I don't think that exists.
Well, I think what he does believe is that, yes, only bad people would do this, but I'm not that person.
And I hate the people who are.
Yes.
They're gross. They're disgusting.
Right, they're gross. And he differentiates himself from those people. He differentiates himself from the people in his class and the people that were also on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow he's different.
Right.
And and we've heard that too from other people when Chris would confront them and say, I've heard that a lot, right? That's that type of thing.
That was a classic line, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, because they're saying the same responses. Oh no, I wasn't going to do it. I came over here because I was going to wait here for her parents to come home, or some kind of like crazy. But they never were going to do anything.
Noble, always noble.
It was always noble. So, yeah, I mean, he I don't know. He's
I think the thing is, right, I don't know whether I've looked into, as probably most people have listening to the subject of, like, child abuse and and from a analytical point of view. And there was a documentary I posted on my channel about a guy. It was called a place, I can't remember, but some guy came on and said he has an attraction to children. And he doesn't want to harm children, but he was born that way, and he was trying to get treatment. Yeah, and it was brilliant.
I actually felt for that guy. I felt for him.
Yeah, exactly, because you're thinking, right,
he was trying to put himself out there, and it was really brave what he did. He did everything he could to make sure that he couldn't hurt children, and he never did. He never did, I assume. But
no, he didn't. Well, that's as far as we know. But with Lorne and many people like him, they have, and you mentioned it brilliantly in one of the calls, Tiffany, is that you can't help what you're attracted to, and nor should you vilify somebody for that if they decide not to hurt anybody. But with him, I attribute it to when I'm at work or wherever and I see an attractive girl and my biology takes over and I want to act upon that. I don't mean attacking them right there, but the immediate impulse of a guy is, I'm going to chat them up. I want to. Biology takes over. So with him, when he sees someone of that age or photographs, biology is inclined to them, but he decides that on that occasion he spent a month long not even questioning whether it was the right thing to do. The only thing that prevents that ongoing is fear. And like you said, with the internet, it presents a platform for people like Lorne to do that without fear of reprisal, and this is, I think, why most of us agree that if they had the opportunity to do it without reprisal, he would do it. And it's important to differentiate that, because as I understand it, because I've been reading books about it and stuff, like pedophilia has been going on it's reported for thousands of years. It's a biological. Why it exists in humans, God only knows, but it's an interesting subject, and what interests me is, why would someone decide to act upon it and hurt a child in the process? It's very strange. I can't quite grasp it, but I suppose that's what makes it interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't feel like he had the impression of hurting someone.
No, I don't.
Yeah. And so I think we kind of touched upon it in the stream that I did with you and Adam. I don't differentiate him from a violent rapist. No. And to me, he is absolutely the same. He just goes about it in a different way. So if you were to approach two victims, one who had to experience, a very violent act, and then someone who went through an experience with someone like Lorne, they're both going to have, I assume, the same psychological damage, because obviously physical stuff can can fade or, get better. But still the fear that is brought in, the feeling of manipulation and, all the types of emotions that can come with a victim.
It's a great point, that,
Yeah.
Tiffany. I don't mind you just interjecting a little bit.
Excellent.
But with regard to what you're saying, I've always sort of believed a little bit the opposite of what you're saying. But now that you've kind of what's happened to Lorne recently, I agree with you in that Lorne's violence was manipulation, mental violence, which is what manipulation is, which is different than physical violence, but ultimately could be more harmful. Physical,
it's still as damaging.
Yeah, like physical, your physical things can heal sometimes better than the mental side of it, and he goes about it or went about it that way because he's a coward.
Yeah, he does not have much.
Absolutely.
I can tell you, not for nothing, but Lorne is starting to remind me of Donnie Morrison. I mean,
Really?
Yeah, the pornography thing, the taking pictures, that, and the charm that he had, and what was the big thing? Lack of judgment. His big lack of judgment. I think that's what it is. But he seemed, and also Donnie's interest in the. I guess he got violated for, looking at child abuse pictures in the library or something. That was
really?
Lorne's graduation. I think they're on the same kind of spectrum. That kind of thing. Donnie looks, well, actually, they both look like creepy guys to begin with, but Donnie is really creeped out. But Lorne seemed to be more along that line when I thought he was a little bit better than that, but I don't think so. Can I ask you, who would you rather deal with? Would you rather deal with a sober Lorne or a drunk Lorne?
Well, sober Lorne is a little bit easier to deal with. The drunk Lorne is infuriating to deal with.
Because he doesn't let you talk, I assume.
Oh, there's bad things happen when people talk over me, especially Lorne. So I tend to get louder.
What Lorne do you get the most out of? In terms of information?
Definitely sober.
Okay.
Yeah, because he, when Lorne is drunk, he will repeat himself constantly, and he'll really hone in on something that you've done, and he's just going to keep hammering away at it. And it's, it could be something that, it could be a question that he doesn't like, and if it's answered, then you would think that he would move on, but he's gonna bring it back.
I love that. The perfect example is when he was drunk and he was angry at you because you took drugs and you had promised you wouldn't, and he wanted to know why. Yeah. And it was interesting. I mean, that was, and he said that over and over and over.
Yeah.
It's like he'd make a great rehab counselor, wouldn't he? But it's just that you're right. He keeps repeating stuff when he's drunk, but I guess that's when he's really funny. I guess the sober is when it's really sober. And also he's detoxing all the time. He's got to be detoxing all the time.
I think so. I think that he drinks a lot more than anyone kind of considered.
Look at this probation report. I mean, the one that was in the dump goes back to September 15th and October 7th. He says that during a home inspection, probation officer observed Armstrong consuming alcohol. He admitted he consumed 4 beers, but 8 empty beer bottles were observed. And then he actually shows up at sex offender class later, drunk. Yeah. And then, I don't know if you know this, but during that breathalyzer, when he got that breathalyzer that he had to pay for, he failed 1, 2, 3 tests during that time.
Was that a matter of him not taking it?
No, there was 2 of those, but one he submitted positive, an 063.
See?
I mean, this guy has he's a criminal. He's a criminal.
Yes, absolutely.
Upon that, while we're talking about this, we're not going to go for too much longer because I'm knackered. I've been anyway. But when we're talking about the new revelations and that, we touched upon the file that he got, and we could maybe cover that in more detail another point. But we did touch upon this last week with Adam, Tiffany, and we might as well just discuss it briefly now when Shin's here, is the drink driving thing, because it's more prominent in his life than I believed it was. I know he mentioned it to Ramona once, but but I didn't realize it was such a regular thing, and as a lot of people do, and I think most people with any kind of common sense would have a massive issue with people who do that. It just highlights what type of character we're dealing with, doesn't it? Unfortunately.
Oh, definitely, because that's one of the things that he'll say bothers him.
Yeah.
If you say, Lorne,
well, to start,
why did you drink? Why did you drive drunk last night? And he'll say, I know it bothers me. So,
and I'll do better next time.
Yes, I won't do it again. Is what it'll end up coming out. So, the thing is that, he doesn't have the foresight to know that he's going to do it. And he doesn't have a plan. So the thing that I would be concerned about, if I was going somewhere and I was going to be drinking, then I would have to have a plan to sober up first. Mm-hmm. So that would mean, okay, I'm getting there at this time. I'm going to be leaving at this time. This is when I should really stop drinking. I'm going to drink a lot less as well. And so that I can make sure that it's safe for me to drive. Or I'm going to have, some kind of an arrangement. And obviously it's different being in a small town in Maine. He's not going to have probably an Uber on every corner. But, there's no real, thought into, okay, if I get into my car after I've been drinking, I could very well kill someone. I could very well kill myself. Do
you think that's his arrogance, Tiffany? You can slap me, shout at me verbally for interrupting you, but do you think that's his arrogance? I'm so good, I'm not gonna crash my car.
Well, I think that it absolutely could be true. That he could be one of those people. I drive better when I've had a few.
Yeah,
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
But also the thing is that he just doesn't. I think the best way to put it is that if a consequence isn't happening at that moment, there's a chance it's not going to.
Part of his delusion, yeah.
Part of his delusions, and we can look at that, and apply it to a lot of the decisions that he makes, including the whole Koala thing. He was very careful, and that's why he showed up. He did not think he was going to get caught. That's why he continues to drive drunk. Is because he doesn't think that he's going to get caught.
It's very concerning, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely.
The thing is, I don't want to tempt fate by saying this, but in fact, I'm not going to do. Forget it.
He will be caught. I'll tell you.
No, I just hope that it doesn't. I just hope that he's not caught in a way that ends up with someone getting harmed.
No.
Absolutely.
I think something more consistent. I think the fact that I think he's always over the limit, except for when he wakes up in the morning, and then he has to drink again because I think he's gonna go into DTs or something. He's always got to have alcohol in his system. I think even when he's not drunk, I think he's over the limit.
How prevalent is his drinking, Tiff?
And I believe that all it would take is just a broken taillight. That's all. He'll get stopped once.
Yeah.
And that's all.
I mean, but then the thing is that we are talking about a small town in Maine. It's not like there's cops on every corner. I think that they have like a regional dispatch, that they don't, so they could have a few sheriffs, that kind of patrol and they take care of things as they happen. And maybe they don't do a lot of proactive policing. I don't know.
If Lorne shows up at probation drunk, chances are he's showing up driving trucks drunk too. So there's stadies out on the road. There's all kinds of way stations, anything that could stop him. But, he's going to run out of luck. It always happens. He will. And hopefully before he kills somebody. But
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see. But this is awesome, Tiffany. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Just before we go, because this has been pretty heavy, we've not had much humour. Is there like a moment, Tiffany? There's probably a few, but is there one specific moment, or I can mention a couple that have just made you laugh like so much, like with something he said or when he's tripped up? I mean, I'll tell you my favourite Lorne Tiffany moment in a minute.
I have to say that there's a lot, actually. So
I can imagine.
I bet after we're done talking, I'll think of one that's even funnier. But I would have to say, as soon as the moaning ghosts make their appearance, the fact that he thinks that his singing brings on the spontaneous masturbation, and to have a ghost just kind of go woo is really funny, and the fact that he loves it so much.
He's masturbating sometimes. It doesn't seem like that. It's weird. I think he's acting. But by the way, real quick, CT wants to yell out. He wants you to tell him to shut the fuck up.
Oh, you can shut the fuck up.
There we go.
There we go.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think that masturbation thing is, I think he's got I don't know. It just seems weird.
Yeah, I would have to say that he is the type who can't perform every time.
Even he pops, and then suddenly he's doing it again. I think
yeah.
that's kind of
Well,
weird.
I think too. Being on the phone with a female who's still going, he's going to pretend like he's still going as well.
Maybe that's he's not being selfless.
How can someone as horny as Lorne seems to be all the time not perform? I find that quite staggering.
Well, I think that's a physical thing.
Oh, we've got to come back and talk about the virgin question, guys. You know that.
I have an indefinite response to that.
You guys are 2-1 against me, and I think that's
my sort of
my side. So you need people. So that's okay.
I like the bit where it's probably a bit more obscure, where you're talking to him and you're going over the chat log, and it's in one of the earlier calls. I think it's one of the I Am Predator calls where you're saying, I'll tell you what it was. It was the one where you're trying to get him to find out where he says no. And you're going through the chat log, but you're going through bits that, like, he's going, no, we don't need to go into that bit. And you're going, yeah, we do. And then he's going, and it's fucking hilarious listening to him fumble. It's so satisfying because he's going like, oh, it's just so good. It's like, yes, we do. Shut up.
Right.
The part about I would die for you, not because you're 13, that whole paragraph you read to him, that was so cringy to him. That one, not because I love you, because I would die for you. That one.
Right. Yeah.
Incredibly satisfying. Oh my God! Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it was funny too. It's funny to talk over him because he doesn't know. Well, he does know at this point, but that I'll just keep going, and he's not going to win. So he just kind of goes, oh,
Yeah. Yeah, you must have some fun. This must be fun on certain times, I would assume, for you. I mean, seems like you have to enjoy it to a certain level in order to, or find some ways to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in the more serious conversations, they're not as silly as a lot of the other stuff. This is probably the more serious side of things, and it's getting into what a monster he is versus he's being funny singing, or he's trying to talk about sex when he doesn't know really about it, and that type of stuff, even though he's not a virgin.
Oh, well, I don't know. All right, we'll let you have that.
You're outvoted 2-1 here, Shin.
Put a place mark in that. Okay.
All right.
But if like we get to the end of because we talked about this briefly, we get to the end of your sort of affiliation with him. Obviously, like you said in the stream we did with Adam, it would be better for the world if Lorne suddenly became enlightened. No one would be at risk. He'd stop drink driving. So that's something we can all agree on, despite people's differing views about the trolling and whatnot. But I'm starting to think that there's no hope. There is. It's a bit of a conundrum. Every human being has a chance, but there's one vital element that's missing, and that's the will to get better. It doesn't seem to exist for him.
In time, you've got to undo 48 years of living like that. I don't know how you're going to change.
Yeah, and I think he has to have the motivation within himself to do it. And there's many points, that that he has tried to say, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to stop smoking for you. I'm going to stop drinking for you.
Cringeworthy.
And it's always, my response is always, do it for yourself. You have to do it for yourself, because as soon as I'm gone, as soon as anyone is gone, he's going to revert back to it if he doesn't have that motivation.
You're assuming you're talking to a reasonable person. So.
Well, I know that's the thing. That's my mistake.
That's a big mistake, I guess. But
yeah.
Just your breath. But yeah, he does that. His motivations are always
self-centered,
something external.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's all about his image. He's really concerned about that, I guess. His reputation, rather than his character.
How can someone in his position be worried about his reputation? It's a bit like, someone on the. I was going to make a bizarre comparison, but it's like he's got none. There's none. He hasn't got one. It's like, I'm worried about what people think of me. I wouldn't worry about that if I were you. It's gone past the point of concern. There's no coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, saying that though, at least if he kind of admitted 100%, it's like you said in the calls, Tiffany, just fucking stop it with your silly excuses. And like you say, some people are never gonna walk away and forgive him, and it's understandable. Yeah. And that will always be the case. But there are people that would just leave him alone.
Sure.
But obviously, that still means he has to break through all these psychological barriers.
Andrew, I think part of why I don't feel as bad about this is because he invites it, and it's really consensual.
Of course. I mean, no one can deny that. But my stance has always been, it doesn't necessarily give you the right to do what you want to somebody just because they invite it. But that's a topic for another time.
Yeah. This is coming to a nice crescendo, though. A nice, it's coming full circle. It's something I feel better about having been a fan about for the last 3 years. And thanks, Tiffany, for that. Appreciate it.
Sure.
I mean, it has a real good meaning and purpose now, and we're doing good. And we're helping Betty, and all these good things that are coming out of it.
Before we go, we might as well mention the dump as well. That sounds a bit weird, that doesn't it? The because I can't really sort of.
Dump goes together. That's a perfect good pairing. Lorne's dump.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you want to mention it, Tiffany? Because you're kind of, it's your kind of thing.
Sure, of course. For anyone who doesn't know, most of the calls and they are being uploaded regularly are available in the content dump, and all of the proceeds go to help Betty, who is an actual victim of Lorne's scamming, and also to make a special note too, that any of the money that is sent to Betty does not alleviate Lorne's debt in any way.
Yes.
So this is just helping her. She obviously suffered. I mean, having someone walk away with thousands and thousands of dollars of your hard work, hard-earned money is going to have a huge impact. So I'm grateful, for everyone who's donated, and certainly we want to keep that going. So you can contact Clobbering Time. I don't have his email address.
I got it.
Just made a comment in the chat, so
Good.
People will be able to contact him that way. I don't think there's anybody in the chat that doesn't know about this, just in case there's the odd person.
But it's not a thing. It's an ongoing thing, and Betty is an unbelievable person. So
yeah, and it's good. And what I like about this at the moment is that everybody is a winner. Like Lorne isn't suffering any specific psychological damage. You're actually trying to help him. Betty's getting money. We're getting laughs. Everybody's a winner.
Probation's getting the truth.
Yeah. So there's no, it's all good. It's all good, man. So on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Tiffany, for joining us. It's been a whole lot of fun. So,
of course,
really, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Shin, as always, thank you for joining me, my friend.
And I love your eyes.
Well, thank you. Right, so guys, we will do it again soon when we can think of some more interesting topics, of which there's like an endless ocean of things to talk about with this guy. This is what makes it so interesting. I can still see me doing these after I retire, in some kind of 3D hologram mode. Oh, wouldn't that freak people out if I appeared in the living room talking about Lorne?
Definitely.
Better than Lorne appearing in the living room, though.
That's true.
Anyway.
Good work. We know you're in the middle of a very important project, and it means a lot to a lot of us. And to me, I should speak for myself, but really rooting for you. Okay?
Great. Thank you so much.
On that note, thank you very much, guys. Thanks, everybody in the chat. I know there's been quite a few people dropping in and out. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll speak to you